Okay, welcome to Business Model Hackers. This is a podcast where we unravel the complexities of business strategy and management tools. Sam Schreim is a former top-tier management consultant who traded the security of a lucrative career for the dynamic world of entrepreneurship. And this podcast is part of that journey. You should know that Sam brings a wealth of experience, having advised everyone from Fortune 500 executives to ambitious startups, and his expertise to governments and nonprofits in strategic and management roles. So gear up as we dissect and understand today's topics. Let's hack into it. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, Philip, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Feeling good. I think this is going to be another good one because I don't know how many people know about the 4 Ps. And I'm actually excited to see how you see it fit into the tool set of hackers.
What are the full 4 Ps first, right? I first learned about them in my first semester at Columbia. When I started Columbia Business School to get my MBA, we had this course on marketing, right? Like marketing 101 kind of thing, right? For business professionals. In the course, we had a Harvard visiting professor. To tell you the truth, I despised that class because it was like, I don't know if you know the difference between Harvard teaching style and the other universities. Harvard Business School teaches a lot on case studies, right? So you learn by doing case studies, and it involves analyzing and discussing real world business scenarios in a classroom setting, right? The professor asks questions, and it was my first semester. I had my master's in computer engineering before that, and I worked a few years at GE before starting my MBAs, and it was like weird. I hated it. The reason is that you had such a mixed bag of students, right? The idea is that the students give you all the answers, or they're the ones that give you the answers, where you would be looking for the professor to tell you the answers. I'm not looking to hear, other people's opinions. So, I hated that class. Long story short, feel that if you have to invest like $500,000 to get an MBA from a leading college, you need to get a good portion of that as lectures. And then Columbia had a mixed bag of that, right? Like they provide case studies, but you also get a big chunk of that in like the traditional classroom lectures, right? That aside, the concept of the 4 Ps of marketing was introduced and popularized in the 1960s by a professor from Michigan State University called Edmund Jerome McCarthy. He introduced the concept in his book, The Basic Marketing and Managerial Approach. It's a good read for anyone interested in the classic marketing concepts that are still relevant today, right? This is a concept that falls under the Lindy effect, which I don't know if you recall, we discussed the Lindy effect. It's about aging in reverse. Basically, the Lindy effect, just a quick recap, is a concept where the future life expectancy of some non-perishable things like technology or ideas or music is proportional to their current age. The concept of the 4 Ps is like 6 decades old. So you can pretty much, it's still relevant today, very relevant, and it's likely to be with us for another 6 decades. So it's good to know. I think it's good you brought up this topic. They're basically considered like a core aspect of the marketing mix. Think of it as a checklist made out of like a set of tactics and strategies that a company uses to promote its brand or product or service in a specific market. Okay? So let's take them one by one. What are they? The first one is the product. The product refers to the actual product or service being offered to customers. This includes things like quality, design, features, branding, packaging, etc., where you determine what exactly are we selling and how does it benefit customers, right? That's the product. Then the second one is price. Price is self-explanatory. It includes elements like profit margins, competitive landscape, customer willingness to pay, etc. It's primarily around setting the optimal price. That's what the price component is about. The third component is place. Place refers to the distribution or getting products, service in front of the customers, right? This includes things like distribution channels, retail outlets, online stores, sales force, etc. The main focus here is to make it easy and convenient for customers to purchase or access your product or service. And lastly, it's promotion, that's self-explanatory, is the branding, marketing, communication efforts that you use to raise consumer awareness about the product or brand or service. This includes things like advertising, direct marketing, public relations, social media, etc. Those are the 4 components.
Okay. Now, when e-commerce and social media came into the picture, how did that change those elements? Did it change those elements?
Yes, they have changed the context of digital revolutions, though I have to say they're still, very relevant. So it doesn't mean they've changed, but it now expanded its definition to include like digital goods and services, right? So before you didn't have something called digital goods, right? Now you do have that. About 6 decades ago, there was no such thing. Product now often integrate like technologies for enhanced user experience, and there's a greater focus on user-centric design and customization. The price, that's substantial, right? What happened with price? Today, you have something called things like dynamic pricing strategies. This is where prices can change in real time. I'm sure you've seen that when you went online and purchased, like specifically in travel, you see that a lot. You've gone in there, you purchased a ticket, or you didn't. You saw a price of ticket, you came the next day and suddenly it changed, right? I mean, a lot of that is it was related to dynamic pricing strategies. Also, what happened in price is the transparency that's happening today in the market, and we discussed that in the last time, in the period where you're doing product research, right? So you go online, you check the prices online, and you see you have far more transparency. So you can always get the cheapest price. So if you're trying to buy a product, you can compare it easily. This wasn't easy in the past, right? You'd go to the store and then you may have to go to another store. So there wasn't like a repository of like the web we have today to check the price. So these things have impacted the price. The web has impacted the price. The third one is place. Now it's not just the physical location. In the past, you could only go to the store and buy stuff. Now you have the online channels, the digital marketplaces. So all of that has made products more accessible and more global. And the fourth, on the promotion side, now you have digital marketing, right? So you have things like social media. I mean, these tools made it accessible to anyone to go online and start selling, right? You can basically, if you have a product idea, you can go online and sell direct to consumer. That wasn't the case in the past, right? But again, I want to say that despite all these changes, the 4 Ps are still very relevant. As I mentioned early, right? It falls under the Lindy category. And the 4 Ps provide a foundational framework that businesses can adapt to fit the digital landscape. So understanding those core principles help businesses make strategic decisions in an environment where both the medium and the consumer behavior are rapidly evolving and changing all the time. That's the fundamentals.
Well, can you give an example of a company that used the 4 Ps masterfully to launch a successful product service? Like if we were to take it one by one, right? What are some innovative strategies businesses have used in recent years to develop and position their products successfully in the market?
Businesses have adopted several strategies to improve mainly product positioning, right? Companies are using more like data analytics. Data analytics help you understand consumer behavior, preferences, and trends. It also gives you insights to allow companies to develop products that are more aligned with what the market needs or what consumer needs. You could see that also in co-creation, right? So companies are engaging customers in product development process more, either through feedback, crowdsourcing ideas, or researching or listening or voice, right? This helps create products that resonate well with the target audience, right? And you see it in sustainability and ethical practices. Many businesses now are focusing on sustainable, ethical production methods, right? This not only appeals to environmentally and socially conscious consumers, but also positions the product as a responsible choice for the consumer. One interesting area I think is the personalization and customization, which has become a popular strategy. This is like something online or not online even, allows you to have a unique value proposition tailored to what the customer needs. Other things like technological integration, integrating things like AI, IoT into the products, or even AR, VR. It's still early stage because AI, just got these advancements in 2023, but you're going to see a lot more of that, in this year and the coming years. AI to almost everything, right? AR is not there yet, but it's also, evolving. And also there's a lot in terms of storytelling and brand narrative in there. This creates an emotional connection, strengthening the emotional connection between the consumer and the product or service, right? So through brand narratives. The list goes on, but I think we covered the main ways how this has evolved, right?
Okay. And how do companies determine the right pricing strategy for their products and services? Are there any common pitfalls they should be avoiding?
Pricing is a complicated task. It's always been complicated, right? And it's getting more complicated, more complex. The technology is making it easier than it used to be in the past. Also availability of data. And with the introduction of AI, that makes it even easier right now. companies adopt different approaches depending on the type of product, the market, to pricing. So, and the list is long, but let me discuss some of them that are. I wrote a book, by the way, on pricing, which actually touches on a lot of the things we're going to discuss now. We're not going to cover everything, but I think we cover the most common pricing strategy, right? One of them is starting with cost-based pricing, right? That's the simplest one. The simplest term is cost-based pricing. When you look at cost-based, it's like you want to make sure that whatever price you set is higher than the total cost of producing the goods or services you're providing, right? And this is, it's always been the case. But you may think that's easy. This method needs to consider market conditions, competitors' pricing, consumer perceived value, assuming that your base cost or the cost of your product or services is lower than the prices that you can set. Now, if it's higher, then you're actually in trouble, right? So you have to work on your cost. But that's like the most basic form of pricing. The other one is the value-based pricing. The value-based pricing sets the price primarily on the perceived or estimated value of a product or service. You kind of try and understand, the optimal price point for the consumer, for optimal price point for maximizing profitability, and the price that a customer perceives as your product or your service is worth. The pitfall here and the risk is if you incorrectly assess the consumer how the consumer values your product. If you set it too high, you limit sales. If you set it too low, you leave money on the table. So that's where actually the technology comes in and kind of helps you optimize that, right? The third one is competitor-based pricing. And that's another simple one. So you look at what your competitors are pricing and you set your prices in relation to the competitors' pricing. Here, the problem is that if you fail to differentiate the product, that this leads, if you want, to a price war or a race to the bottom. It's like erodes all of your profit margin. Then you have the dynamic pricing, which we discussed earlier, where you leverage algorithms and market data to adjust your prices. This is like based on read time, demand, competition, other external factors, but there is a risk here again, is that your customers may perceive this as unfair or inconsistent. So, a lot of times I would go in there, see a price, at some point, and I go in there again, I see a different price. I feel like either, if I see a higher price than I saw earlier, I feel that I'm getting ripped off. I have to buy it, right? So this creates kind of like not such a great customer experience. Then you have the pricing called penetration pricing. That's setting a very low price to enter a competitive market initially, right? This is where you try to attract customers very quickly. Of course, there's danger that the company may struggle to raise prices later without losing customers, right? We've seen this in the Groupon, era. I don't know if you lived through that or you used Groupon in the past, but many merchants went into Groupon very quickly, and then they didn't see the benefit later on when they sold full price. People were expecting always half price, right? So, and then you have things like psychological pricing. This is using price points that are like the $9.97 or $9.99, right, instead of $10. If you overuse this strategy, it can sometimes cheapens your product. You also have bundle pricing. I think we've covered a lot, right? Bundle pricing is where you offer several products or services together at a lower price than they would actually cost individually. The risk with that is that consumers might feel forced into buying items they don't want. But my favorite of all those, right, is subscription-based pricing. Right, that's my favorite. I'll close with that. I don't want to talk about pricing.
Yeah. I think we've covered it in your book, so.
But the subscription one is a good one, because particularly selling software, entertainment, or consumer goods, even when you offer subscription-based access, instead of having people put out the entire price, full outright to pay and acquire something, it makes it more accessible and provides like steady revenues, like recurrent revenue, which is good for both sides. You provide accessibility and you have a steady income stream as opposed to one-off.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits. And then, sure, there's always going to be people who are like, another subscription. But the truth is, there are some people who are like, great, it's only low commitment for this month. So really, who are you going after? What I'm interested in is, with the global era, right? We're talking global connectivity. How does place play like an importance as far as a component, and like what role do online platforms play in distribution strategies?
Right. With global connectivity, place has taken a life of its own, right? So I think one of the things, for example, expanded market access. The number of online platforms out there have expanded, if you want, the potential reach for businesses, allowing even small scale operations and startups or even like solopreneurs to access global markets. Take a book, for example, my books. I publish it now on Amazon at the comfort of my home, and anyone in the world can buy it. I'm talking about physical books here, right? Through what we call distributed manufacturing or distributed printing, right? It's not only just digital. So digital, but you can sell global without any issues, without any effort. Right now, you have the tax things to take care of, as nations are recognizing that and adding the local sales tax. But I think from a physical perspective, you can, through, for example, 3D manufacturing, you can sell anywhere in the world. So that's, for example, one thing that has substantially, changed, if you want, or a new dimension of that has a significant impact on place. The other one is the customization of distribution strategy. The online platform now allow you for more tailored distribution strategies. Companies can now micro-segment. You choose distribution channel that best match your target segments. This is something that was not possible before. Then you also have reduced overhead costs. For example, you don't have to rent retail space or storefronts, or you reduce them. I'm not saying you eliminate them. For some products, you still need them, but you reduce the requirement for that. That costs a lot of on your overheads and on your rents. This actually puts the strategic advantage on the supply chain. The ability and the requirement to make them more efficient. But then you have the obvious direct-to-consumer trend model. This is the ability to sell to consumers online, bypassing any traditional intermediaries like wholesalers and retailers. In the past, you produce something that if your retailers didn't carry your product or your wholesalers didn't distribute your products, you're doomed to failure. But now you have a good idea, you can and you've seen that in many examples around the world. Most notably that the Dollar Shaving Club, that you saw that one product for a year. I don't remember if you called those ads. They always kept showing up on your newsfeed. That company sold for $1 billion. Procter & Gamble, I believe, just a year or 2 years later. So that's like the accessing consumers directly is no longer the privilege of just these deep pocket brands like Nestle's and Unilever's and the Procter & Gamble's. So you can do it as a solopreneurs or as any startup. You also got e-commerce like Amazon, Alibaba, and others like that are now ruling the space, right? In terms of common pitfalls in digital distribution, the importance of omni-channel presence is not to be ignored. Consumers now expect a seamless shopping experience across multi-channels, including physical stores and websites, social media platforms. So the integration of these channels is vital, to make for business to provide a cohesive and a convenient consumer experience. The other thing is you overlook logistics. Not necessarily having your own, but having access to efficient logistics is crucial, especially in the e-commerce space, right? Poor delivery system can lead to customer dissatisfaction, big time, right, on the product. Maybe it didn't deliver on time or product arrived defective, whatever. The other is completely, I think that's the mistake that maybe some retailers did or maybe some e-commerce stores or startups did, is neglecting the physical store presence. In some products, it's a physical presence or experience is still important. So completely ignoring offline distribution can limit your market reach. And you've seen now trends, in the past few years where Amazon is acquiring retail, right? Is having retail stores. Since Amazon was purely an online play before, now they're getting into the store, and you see the store is now getting online, right? So you have both sides, both jumps happening, trends happen. I think lastly, failing to adapt to local markets. Global connectivity means reaching diverse markets. Each market has its own preferences, regulation, cultural nuisances. Tailoring the strategies to local markets is key. The simplest example is like my books, right? If I don't translate it, let's say if I'm selling in Germany, if I don't translate it to German, I'm probably only going to get, a very small percentage of the market that I can reach if the book was in German. I think that kind of illustrates the importance. I mean, all the place components in digital age is not just about physical location, but involves a strategic blend of online and offline channels tailored to the target market and backed by efficient logistics and data analytics. This evolution has made place even more dynamic and complex. Businesses now need to be tech savvy. They need to be customer centric in their approach. I think that's, to conclude the question, I hope with place I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I know I still go to let's say like a Best Buy or whatever local electronics, if they have something, just so I can see and experience it. Although I do still go back and find a better price wherever I can. No, so then let's talk about digital marketing, because you sort of talked about one company that did that to great effect, like the Dollar Shave Club, right? Taking center stage, digital marketing. How has that sort of changed how promotional strategies have evolved? And what are some cutting edge tactics maybe some companies have been using to reach their audiences?
It was starting with social media marketing. Right. It's very old. You're now used to social media marketing, but the whole phenomenon started in 2007, or I don't know the exact year, but somewhere around there. And it didn't really take or go mainstream in terms of promotion until like later, maybe early 2010s. Then you have a lot in terms of content marketing where companies or brands, or kind of what we're doing right now, is create valuable content or relevant content to engage and target their audiences, right? This is similar to what we're doing now, right? Then you have also the personalization and segmentation. This is like the ever-evolving realm of data analytics. Business can then, analyzing your internal data or even external data, you can tailor messages to offer individual consumers based on their behavior. You can do targeted ads to the consumer behavior and preferences and their purchases. You got email marketing automation, and the list goes on: video marketing, mobile marketing, search engine optimization. I don't want to give description of that because most people know what these things are, right? But what's even more interesting is what's called programmatic advertising. This is something that is evolving now. It's quite new. That's the use of AI to automate ad buying, targeting more specific audiences at scale. For example, real-time bidding for digital ad space allows you to be more efficient and more effective at advertising. You see that a lot in travel websites and airline pricing. What's coming of age now, but still, maybe early on, is the augmented reality and virtual reality. These technologies, they help you offer an immersive experience. That's, when they're evolved and everybody's using them, I believe they will replace the phone or the handheld pretty soon. You're going to see more of this with the introduction of like Apple Vision and more AR glasses now. So you're going to see a lot more of this immersive, experience and promotion. And a lot of businesses and a lot of brands do that. Is like maybe over-reliance on a single channel. Focusing too heavily on a single channel can be risky, right? So diversifying, and maybe having your own channels is far more resilient. Then you also have things like privacy concerns. There is increasing awareness now on data privacy. Brands need to be transparent and compliant with data protection laws. It's all started with Europe with the GDPR. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Then Canada followed, and now every state, one after one. You saw also what happened with Facebook stock and revenues when the introduction of iOS 14 prevented tracking. So now every time you open, you have allowed to track. The most important pitfall in digital marketing, failing to measure and adapt according to your measurement. And that's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes, because digital marketing requires constant analysis, constant measurement, constant interpretation and adaptation. Not being able to use the data effectively is a missed opportunity. And not only missed opportunity, is a waste of money in many cases. Because you would be throwing money in places where, you could be optimizing in others or getting more bang for the buck in other places.
Yeah, that's heavy, especially with the iOS change. I know that was a game changer for so many in digital marketing. When we're going to dive in and look at the way maybe a startup uses, the application of the 4Ps in contrast to maybe a small business or large corporations? Is there a difference across those?
Oh, yeah, big time. For the product, for example, in startups and small business, you often focus on niche, right? And usually have a limited product range. In large corps, you have a broader product range, right? You may invest heavily in research and development. Their products are often already well known. The brands are well known. They have small changes or additions to existing product lines based on market research that they already have, access to. On the price, for example, you have your pricing strategies. While as a startup, it's more flexible and experimental to attract initial customers. In large corp, they have more resources to employ complex pricing strategies like the ones we discussed earlier. And on the distribution front or the place, on the startup, you're often limited due to budget constraints for goods you usually rely on third party, right? Unless you are a distributor yourself, unless your business, you're into distribution. But in large corporations, they have their own channels and they have global supply chains. So there's no comparison there, right? On the promotion front, I think, that is where maybe promotion strategies, as a startup, you may rely on more cost-effective methods like social media, but they're effective nonetheless. As a large corp, you may throw money, you may throw money at things because that's only, you have a big budget. And on the startup front, you may hack your way through it and be more efficient, but it doesn't mean that you're less competitive. As a large corp, what you do by throwing a lot of money, you raise the bidding price. That's the problem, I think, with that. But you also waste a lot of money. But again, despite these differences, the core principles remain relevant to both startup, small business, or large corp. Doesn't matter. The strategies in each area just need to be adapted, according to your company size, your market positioning, and your available resources.
Now I'm actually curious if you have any opinions or stances on this. What are your predictions for the 4Ps moving forward? Do you foresee any major shifts or new elements being added?
The future is anyone's guess. If I were to say, I don't like predicting the future, but there are some trends that you can see are happening. I see AR and VR as the biggest one. I see these potentially even replacing, I mentioned earlier, handheld devices. If this becomes a reality, then if you combine AR, virtual reality with AI, you have far more immersive experience. And I think everything, all the 4Ps, will change as a result of that. You have to adapt according to how this evolves. I've seen some videos of how this may look. We've seen some movies of how the world may look, but this immersive part of AR, VR makes a big difference. And this is, I think, a trend that's coming sooner or later. Very obvious ones are there will be more or greater emphasis on personalization and product strategy, maybe more dynamic and flexible pricing models. Other aspects like integration of sustainability and ethical standards and transparent marketing, a shift towards experiential marketing, that is something that is also happening, and the collaboration and co-creation and product development and product creation in the development phase. I mean, these are the trends, I think, in general that are, basically obvious that are happening.
Okay. Now, as we begin to close things out here for the 4Ps, I just have to ask, is there some kind of unique hack or insider tip that businesses might be overlooking when applying the 4P model?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the 4Ps, I think, is one of those tools and concept that is great to adopt as a rule of thumb. As a rule of thumb, you may think individually you can take rule of thumbs, but also overall, right? So if you're looking at a marketing plan, I think you want to make sure that it does include and address all four components. I think that's, one of the easiest things, to look for. The second is if we take it like one by one, on the product front, you could look at things like a business model hackathon. This is something that, I discussed in another video. It's a process in which you conduct a hackathon to promote or to develop your products, right? As a rule of thumb, maybe you need to always make sure that your product development aligns with customer needs and preferences, right? So that's, I think, if you're looking at the individual elements. The second one is on the pricing. As a pricing hack, I think price discrimination. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the price discrimination. I'll give you an example. So you walk into Starbucks, and if you buy a coffee, let's say it's black coffee. I don't know what the price today is, $4, price of coffee, just black coffee, right? But if you now start ordering, latte with milk and cinnamon and all that, every one of those, is an addition. That's a form of price discrimination. They add $1 to each one of those, and the cost of those are pennies on the dollar, right? So you end up buying a coffee for $10, right? Just for adding these additions, right? That's one form of price discrimination. The other one is obviously the airline is very good at that, where you buy your tickets early versus you buy your ticket later. If you buy with refund, with no refund. So a price discrimination, I think, is a good hack to consider. As a rule of thumb, you need to set price that reflects the value perceived while ensuring profitability. So the last thing you want is set prices that doesn't make you profitable, right? Because that's the end of you. On the place front, I think you can look at omni-channel. Being omni-channel is something that is definitely, feasible today, and is a hack I consider. As a rule of thumb, I think you need to choose your distribution channels that align with customer habits and preferences. This in the digital age often means like strong online presence. If you don't have a strong online presence, you're physical purely, that's something you really need to make sure. Lastly, on the promotion front, I think I personally, things that I learned on my own, I think the funnel strategy where you tailor your campaigns to the famous awareness pyramid. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where you have your customers having several level of awareness, on the top being unaware, totally on the bottom being totally unaware, where you have the biggest market, right? And then you have customers that are problem aware, then you have them solution aware, then product aware, then most aware, right? Targeting your funnel to these different, and understanding which ones to target and tailoring your promotion campaign to those, I think that's an excellent hack. As a rule of thumb, I think, again, omni-channel. So don't stick to a single channel, and try to retain, as much control to accessing your customer base internally as possible.
Yeah, that omni-channel thing, I think, is the toughest part for people. But like you said, it's tailored to your customers' needs and preferences of where they prefer to see you too. So, man, thank you so much. I think that's going to be our time for today on this topic here. And I got to thank everyone who listened for tuning into the Business Model Hackers show. For more insights and updates, please go and visit businessmodelhackers.com, and don't forget to follow our social channels either. Also, as always, there's a special invite to our listeners. Join our email list, and you'll get access to exclusive downloadable resources that go far more in depth on these topics. Sam himself shared that he wrote a book even on pricing alone in this episode. So you'd be able to find that through our links on the website. It's all interlinked. So once again, thank you so much. And until next time, keep hacking.